Okay, first of all, tell me please about your company and about yourself.
Okay. So my name is Craig Park. I am an associate principal and director of digital experience design for a firm called Clark and Enersen. We are a holistic architectural and engineering practice based in Lincoln, Nebraska, founded in Lincoln, Nebraska, with major offices in Kansas City and Fort Collins, Colorado, and then smaller offices in Lawrence, Kansas, and Omaha, Nebraska, and even smaller offices, one person, in Portland, Oregon, and me in Charleston, South Carolina. And the Portland, Oregon, and Charleston folks, the two of us, the goal is we will actually build practices there over time. But we're sort of the scouts for future growth. So the firm is an architectural and engineering practice. We specialize in higher education, science and technology buildings. That's a bulk of our practice. But we work on lots of other kinds of work, from workplace to institutional work to healthcare. And about 190 people, 75 years old, working currently on close to 400 projects.
Oh, wow.
In various stages. I was going to pull that up before I got on the call, but I forgot to do that. But so we'll call it 400 for numbers' sake. I'm relatively new to the firm. I joined in the spring of 21. So I've been with the firm for a couple of years now. And when I said holistic in my original description, that means that we are architects, but we're also every engineering discipline that architects need to hire to complete a building design. So we have all of those in-house, from civil landscape architecture on the ground level to mechanical, electrical engineering. All the digital work I do is low voltage IT, audiovisual security systems. We have sustainability practice areas. We have, I know I'm going to forget one, commissioning. So about 12 different disciplines all working internally, most of us working on most of the projects. So we work together collaboratively across the geography. So right now, most of my projects are in the Midwest because of those three primary hubs for the firm.
Oh my gosh. How do you collaborate? Like, imagine you have 400 projects. First of all, it's amazing that you count them, because many companies, they don't know even how many projects they have in general, okay? You're my hero after that.
Yeah. Funny you should ask, is that, and it's actually 405. I just pulled up the chart.
Oh, wow.
And now the good news is a lot of those are architectural projects go through a series of phases from the very outset when a client wants to build a building to when the building opens and they move in and occupy the building. And in commercial buildings, that generally takes on average about 3 years. So a lot of, I would say probably a third to maybe 40% of those 400 projects are actually in later stages where there's not as much day-to-day involvement by all the disciplines. Our design work happens in the first 9 months of that 3 years. And so I just looked, I'm actively involved in about 40 projects myself. And I would say about 20% of those don't require a lot of work because they're under construction. And so there's not a lot of input needed until the very, very end when we go and check, does everything work that we designed? So to answer your question is that I for the last year, and Dimitri and I have had this conversation, I am on a workflow committee because we are studying how could we do this better. And while we do it really well and we're profitable and we're happy, we have a very a good culture and everybody really enjoys working with each other, the frustrations come from exactly that challenge. How do you align the workflow of any individual in that 190 people with all the tasks that have to happen in their discipline and then cross-discipline? As a technology consultant, I work regularly with the interior design folks about where does a display screen go? Or I work with the electrical engineers on where do my cables go that connect all the things in the building together, because that runs on an electrical infrastructure. And I generate heat. I do my audiovisual equipment generates heat. So mechanical engineers need to know how much that heat is so they can put in the proper level of air conditioning into the building. So every one of our disciplines has something interrelated that way. And my snarky answer was we do it badly, to answer your question. But we do it well enough that our clients are happy and we're, we make money, but we're looking for ways to do it better. So we built some milestone scheduling software, some bespoke software. I lobbied for Kanban because I think it actually could do that. And we'll share a little bit of that as we go through the interview. But there was a separate committee on scheduling that was just trying to put together something that allowed us to enter in the major milestones. Because over that 3-year average period, there are specific deliverable dates of what we'll call 5 phases. And so we know when those are and how much time we can allot to each of those phases. So we know a lot of work has to get done in this first phase, and then there's a little review period where the client looks at it, and then we move to the next phase, and it gets a little more refined. Think of it as designing your house, where you sit down with your architect and say, I think I need a 3-bedroom house. And then when they finish the second phase, they now show you, here's what a floor plan might look like. The third phase, they're going to actually show you what the building looks like, a model of what the real building looks like. And the fourth phase is the construction drawings that allow a contractor to go build your house. That same process happens in every building. And there's the fifth phase is that it's what the architects do and engineers do while the contractor is building is observe that and make sure that everything we designed is actually what's being built.
And do you receive feedback from your customers during this 3 years?
Yes. Yeah, and we solicit that feedback. How are we doing on communication? Are you getting the information you need to be comfortable that your building is going to be the building you want?
Yeah.
And need, and does it meet all the needs that you identified? Did we bring anything to hopefully you hired us because we're creative and experienced and we're experts in education and science and technology, particularly our little niche is in animal. We do a lot of veterinary medicine facilities, both education and in clinical, as well as laboratory research facilities. So, and because we're in the Midwest, a lot of that is oriented towards agriculture. So various forms of agriculture. So a niche within a niche within a niche. And so part of that is, in fact, communicating with the client that here is what we bring in terms of ideas of what would make your building better. That you need a building, you have a student body that's taking your this degree program, and they have to have classrooms and labs and things to do that. But here's how we can make those more efficient, how they can be better learning outcomes because they engage the students in a better way or more interesting way. So that's all part of that conversation.
Yeah.
Very, very collaborative.
Yeah, I have a million questions, okay? And for because I'm Agile coach as well, but I'm Agile coach in sales.
Yeah.
And for sure, I have first question before we'll discuss Kanban Zone. Do you collaborate in all those projects with sales at the same time, right? Or not? Or they live in their world?
So the way that architecture is sold is a little different than traditional services, and there are what I'll call 2 buckets, two areas. One is if you work in what I'll call the private sector. If I was an architect designing your home, that would be a contract, and I would have to go out and sell the idea that I design homes for people. When we work, most of our education work is for public universities. So where are you based, Marina?
Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay, so I've worked for the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. Yeah, on a new health education building. So, and that's a good story because we won that project. So an architect, the university will do what they call master plan. They'll look at their whole campus and say, we need to consolidate a number of medically related departments and disciplines into one building for better efficiency and better collaboration between them. We have this area of the campus where we can do that. We've done what we'll call a master plan. We know it needs to be about this big, and now we'll put out what they call a request for qualifications. So as a former salesperson in architecture, I look for those. And I particularly we have two people that sell for us that look for those clients that are likely to need the kinds of buildings we know how to design. When that request for qualification comes out, it's not a fee-based sell, it's a qualifications-based sell. So we are asked to present our experience on designing buildings like this, who's going to work on it, and they submit a book, basically, of resumes and pretty pictures and descriptions and approach that the client then reviews, and they might get 20. Yeah. If it's that was a big project, $100 million, big project. They take those 20, and a group of clients will review the books without talking to the architect, just review the books, and they'll pick 3 or 4, and then they'll invite them in to present for an hour about how they would do this project. And in that case, I came to Knoxville, and we came a couple of days early because I was a consultant at that point to another architect, and we got together as a group that was going to do the presentation, and we rehearsed who's going to say what when, and we what's our 45 minutes or half an hour, and then Q&A, and we presented images and stories, and we practiced, and we got up and we presented, and there were 20 people in the room that we were presenting to. They asked a bunch of questions. They came and looked at our model, and then we went out the door, and another group came in and did the same thing. At the end of the day, they'd seen 4 or 5 architects, and the next day called up and said, you won, and you won unanimously. And I would say, because I've done this a lot, I told the team when we left and we went and had lunch, was we won. I could tell by the reaction of the audience that they really were liking what they were hearing from us, to the point where they were interrupting and asking questions before we were done. And then they were very complimentary at the end, where our hour went an hour and 15 minutes, which is normally they keep you pretty to the time clock. So much of architecture in the sales side is all about what I'll call scouting, knowing where those are. And we have a marketing department that puts together the history of our project experience in each kind of project we're pursuing. Each one is bespoke, customized to that client, and each presentation to a client is unique. You might have some common elements, but it's different. So I was going to share, if I can, I can show you something.
Yeah, you can share.
So when I first started working with Kanban Zone, I built a portfolio board of all of my projects. Now it's a little out of date. I've been a little lazy about keeping it up to date, but here's marketing. Right now, this one used to be over here. And if I clicked on it, it would open up and it would tell me more about the project. But we won that project. So it moved into that first phase. And then as the projects move along, they move into each of the phases. Yeah. And I use this to keep my senior management team informed about the amount of work we're doing in my discipline, my team, and where it is in the phases leading up to here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 actually. So there's bidding in here too. And then if I went a little bit farther, there's actually a post-construction. Some of our clients ask that. And then there's archive. It's finally done. In the doing done model, there's a done column way over here. And then I can also look at it by market. So here, if we looked at, here's my 2 major columns, higher education and technology, science and tech, and you can see they're much deeper than the other ones. Where civic, which is civic government, state and local government, corporate, workplace, K-12 education, federal government, which we do very little of, and worship, like churches. So there's a few peripheral stuff we don't do very much of. So I use mirroring to allow both those boards to stay up to date with the kinds of projects we're working on, and again to keep them unique. And then each of the projects, let me, if I have one that's this is not a particularly good one, but here's my regular to do in progress, QA, QC, and then done
by each building, right?
By each. So here's a building, and then here are my 3. I have 3 disciplines inside of that I have responsibility. Again, I'm sorry, this is not completely filled out, but there are spaces for the tasks in each phase to move over. They all stack here. So I built a template is sort of my average project.
No, I mean, it means that for each project or each building, you have board. And
Right.
basically, you have all information, one board in each building. And everybody collaborate around this project or building and sales, marketing,
Right.
and other.
Everybody's aware. And so I have been lobbying that of all the things we're doing in our workflow committee and our scheduling committee that are, in fact, I can share my screen again. I can show you because I think it's up. Let me make sure.
Very interesting.
So our scheduling software looks like this, and it gives me upcoming milestones.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I click on your projects, then it gives me a list by every project, and then I can dig into one that's more contemporary. I was working on this one. I was in a 3-hour meeting today with this.
Oh, wow.
So it gives me information about the project, and it gives me, the next design milestone, which is my project manager is a little out of date. Oh, the next one is February 29th.
Oh, wow.
So we have, this project is going to go on for the next 2 years. He could have, if he did, really fill this out and have all those things in. But this this doesn't help me very much. Doesn't give me a good visual cue of where anything is. I've got to dig to get to data. And that's why I have been saying that I believe architecture and engineering for the building industry could benefit from using Kanban as a tool to create cloud-based visual access to the dashboards of all the projects, and then be able to drill down by discipline. That's why I build multidiscipline boards to demonstrate as a role model of how this could work for all of our other disciplines.
It's a very interesting industry. I worked in 34 industries, but I've never had any architects, never. It's very interesting.
Yeah, well, we are very Gantt chart waterfall based. It's tradition, and because so many disciplines, I would say I said we have 12, and that's probably 80%, but there are food service who design kitchens. There are code consultants and other kinds of specialty consultants. A team gets to be really big. And so how do you provide, that's why I think Kanban dashboards, or particularly portfolio boards, are really handy as a way to drill down quickly to see all the disciplines and where they are and what their milestones are in one place. But it is used in some firms. I've done some research, but not used extensively. And I have recently submitted to the American Institute of Architects a grant request to their funding grant studies, $10,000 grant studies, to look at new processes that would improve the delivery of architecture. Now, I haven't heard back yet whether they'll accept my grant proposal, but
I wish you luck.
Thank you.
Really, because they don't know that it's possible.
Yeah,
because
they don't.
It's classic waterfall.
And
let me ask you this. Let's explore point A and point B. Point A, where you were before, and you decide, okay, I need something different. I need to find Kanban or Agile tool, whatever. It was your point A. What was it, and which problems did you have? And now your point B, and which problems did you solve, and how? Okay.
When I first started down what I call the Agile road was about 4 years ago, where at that time, most of my work was related to marketing and sales for a large engineering firm. It was my previous job before I joined Clark Enersen. Again, we were 3 or 4 primary disciplines, and we were 100 people spread out all over the country. And most of us were working virtually. And we were doing that since way before COVID. So we were, so I was looking for ways that we could consolidate information in a way that everyone could see and everyone could be aware of upcoming work and what in our marketing department, what workflows were coming, because in marketing, both engineering and architecture services, relatively small departments, out of our 190 people, there are 8 people responsible for all of the output of the marketing department. And most of that work is related to those RF requests for qualifications presentations they're putting together. So they're often working on a dozen on deadlines that are that are relatively tight. Sometimes you get 2 weeks, sometimes you get a month, sometimes you get 6 weeks, but they're very much in what I'll call the sprint cycle. So they're in that short window of time. And that most of the marketing staff have similar capabilities, even though they were distributed around the country. They were in different places. So if, let's say, Craig had 3 due in 2 weeks, Mary in Pittsburgh could see, oh, I can take that thing off the to-do list, and because I've got some capacity now, and I can book that next 2 weeks and finish that project. So I don't. It's not necessarily have to be assigned to me. I can go grab it. So I started looking at Kanban as a way to streamline the marketing deliverables of what we do, to free up time to do what I call proactive marketing, social media, expert interviews. We do what you're doing right now, is that we write and publish and speak about our technical expertise out in the market of the people who buy our services. So, and that's what I call the proactive marketing side. Will take second seat to the reactive part, is we have an RFQ or an RFP and we have to respond to it. So that's priority one. So how can we use a tool like Agile, Kanban, Scrum, whatever you want to call it? So I'll send you a copy of it. I wrote an article about marketing like Silicon Valley, and how you could apply Kanban in particular to the marketing of architectural and engineering services, and presented it. You're going to love this. It was in Nashville.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in 2021, my first non-COVID, first place we went where we had 150 people there, and I was the keynote speaker, because it was 150 senior marketing people from architects and engineers all over the southern region. It was the Southeast Regional Conference for a national association, which is coming up at the end of March in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm on the program committee for it. I was on a call with them today. So I spoke to a group, and when I finished the presentation, they all said, "Wow, that's a lot of information, and it's so different than what we do now. I don't know how we make that shift. How do we go from what we've always done to a new way?" And I have a friend in Charleston who is the head of marketing for a very large real estate management company. And she, I think now 3 years ago, started using Asana. And that was when I interviewed her for the article I was writing. She said, "Yeah, I love it because it gives us a platform that we can see all the things that are going on easily, and our staff that are spread out all over the state can see, but also that our clients, who are the internal brokers for the firm that we are providing information for, can also see where their project is in the pipeline. They can know exactly where. They don't have to call me all the time. They can just log in and see it." And so she said, but the biggest challenge was the first 18 months, because work doesn't stop. So making that shift, they had to build in training time and orientation time to go from the old processes to the new. And that was the hardest part. I know that I was working at that time with a platform that no longer exists. So it's not a competitor anymore. It was called Demand Metric out of Toronto, Canada. They were a very small Kanban platform. But what they provided, which I was curious in, I'd known the CEO for a long time, was they provided a front-end consulting practice to come in and do that process mapping and conversion, and establish the best practices in a way that their local team, and they did this for the marketing. It was coincidental. It was right when I moved to South Carolina, and they were working for what's called the Medical University of South Carolina, which is the large education medical center in Charleston. And their marketing department that handles all the marketing of their clinical services hired Demand Metric to build a Kanban model for them for their marketing programs. So I talked to Kelly, who runs that program, and she said, we needed the same thing. We have a whole bunch of little projects that need to get done, and everybody needs to know where things are and how they're related. And it was really good. They have since, because he couldn't scale his platform up, he didn't have the the engine behind him that you all have. He ultimately gave up after several years of trying. He just couldn't fund it. And he's now just doing pure consulting. Um, and
Let me ask you this, like a
yeah,
summary, like what was your main 3 challenges
yeah.
when you decided to find Kanban tool? Like
Okay.
3 things.
The 3 challenges was communicating workflow process and where we are on this continuum of beginning to end, to have something that was that was the biggest part, was communicating. Something that also let us provide a template of standard steps that need to happen, so that we weren't, it's not that we want to be, I don't want to be so prescriptive that you have to do it this way, but every step has a deliverable to meet the client's needs. And so you just need to know what that deliverable is and how much time is allotted to get there, because on the technical side, we're actually fee-based. So we have to make sure we're not spending 3 times as much time to get done. So it helps to put a limits around the time. So it's managing time and deliverable expectations. And the third part was, for me, is there a tool out there that will give me more free time to do other creative work that I'm a longtime project manager, that I'm not so bogged down in the weeds of project management, that I can do more creative work either on the marketing side or on the technical design side that I don't have because I'm so busy trying to manage 100 projects.
Okay, it were your 3 main challenges. How did you make decision which platform you're going to use? Why did you make a choice about Kanban Zone? Because there are so many
So I did what a lot of people do, is I went and signed up for the free trial, a bunch of them. So Asana, Monday, ClickUp, I can't remember how many. And I think I'm a smart person, so I said I'm not going to do a lot of tutorials or ask for consulting. I'm just going to dig in and start to, I built a template. I've got a list of, here's some projects. I'm going to plug those in and I'm going to see how they work. I also was doing just online web research on what are good platforms, Capterra and G2. I looked at who rates that. I had read Scott Brinker's Hacking Marketing. I don't know, you do know that book? So that was the big aha moment. My friend Jesse, who's the CEO of Demand Metrics, said, before you get started, just go read that book, because that will give you a really good layperson's overview of how Kanban can work, or Agile can work, and then how Kanban overlays on that as a platform, a management platform. When I don't remember exactly how I got to Kanban Zone, but it was so customizably easy for me to move things around, and with just a little bit of, I think I remember 2 or 3 coaching sessions with Dimitri to talk about sort of similar questions. What do you do? How do you do it? And he said, definitely look at our portfolio style, because that's going to really fit your model the best, and then work from there. And you've added a whole many more little features sets since then. I haven't kept up. But that was really the rationale, was look at the universe of what's out there. I looked at price points. At that moment in time, I was really considering, I was leaving that firm before Clark Enersen. I knew that. I didn't know where I was going to go. And I thought I would become a marketing consultant again, which I did years and years ago. And I wanted to bring something to the table that was different. And I thought using Agile would be a differentiator for that. And the true story is I made a list of firms that I thought would be potential clients. And Clark Enersen was on the list. They happened to be the top of the list alphabetically. And they were the first one I called. And I said, hey, I've got this idea to, restart my consulting practice. I'm going to retire. I'm just going to call it retired, but I'm going to have a side gig to do this. And the principal I talked to said, yeah, that's a great idea, but we really like you. Can we have a meeting? And I had 2 meetings and I had a job. Much different than
great salesperson, okay? You're
well,
marketer.
I think it was luckily called the right place at the right time. But they had a need for. I have this split of the marketing guy and creative guy on this side, and the technical guy who does all the IT, AV, audiovisual stuff on this side. And I've heard that story about me, how people describe me. And they said, we really like the marketing person, and you can be a strategic advisor to our marketing team. But we really like the tech guy because that's something we can use in every project right now, and we don't have. And they literally made an offer I couldn't refuse. I can't. I was joking with my wife. She said, "When are you going to retire?" I said, "I can't afford to retire. It's too much fun, and it's something I enjoy doing, and they're pay me for it. So even better." And I don't have to go out and do the sales side of starting a consulting practice from scratch. Now, it doesn't mean I haven't stopped talking about it. I just wrote a draft today about using Agile for managing small technology projects at universities.
Oh, wow.
That's going to go into the Society of College and University Planning's quarterly journal later this spring. I think they will accept it. There still has to be reviewed, but I'm pretty sure they will. And so I continue to write about it to the industry to say, there's a process out here that can be used for a lot of different applications that you're not thinking about. And I always reference Kanban Zone. You get a plug.
It's wonderful to hear. What is your main 3 or 5 features in Kanban Zone?
Let me look at it again so I can do it from scratch. I think that if I start at the project level, the fact that I can go down to an individual task and within that easily provide the checklists with descriptors, what I call time binding or whatever, time boxing, that allows me to know we've got, and timeline. I can put in a deadline, a due date. That part really made it easy for each of the sub-sections of work to be well-defined. And the second part was, I probably didn't come in second, was the custom fields, being able to create a lot of custom fields. Mirroring was probably the big aha moment. Was I only had to do it once, and I could mirror it several places, sort of sequentially around.
It's my favorite. Mirror,
right.
Mirror, my favorite.
The fact that I can look at with a single click on a phase to under metrics and see the total time spent, the cycle time, what's in progress, what's to do, what the backlog looks like. It really simply, really quickly, it lets you, when you do, and now I do every Friday morning at 9:30, I have a 15-minute stand-up with my team. And we look at it usually spans about, on average, 3 to 6 projects, because that's what's on a given week, what we're working on. But I also spend a little bit of time on what's on the horizon that we know the firm just won. So I've got a city hall near Kansas City that will start up next month. And I've just got the news from the client, from the senior partner that we're going to be involved in that project. So heads up, there's a new one coming,
it's amazing.
And so I think those are, probably the biggest ones. I'll be perfectly honest, was that I wish I was more disciplined about keeping it as more up to date than it is. I always seem to find myself a week or two behind because work got in the way. And that I'm in a place today where before I joined Clark Enersen, I had a team of 8. And so I could delegate some of the technical work or the client work that I'm doing today to other people, and which give me more time to manage. So I think there's a place where what I was hoping I could do was, by introducing Agile and Kanban to our project management team, show them that if you all use this, then I benefit too, because I can help you set it up, but then you can run it because that's your job. You're putting in dates and following tasks and making sure things are getting done. You're not doing them. You're just making sure that they're on the list of things that need to be done this week or this sprint, whatever the sprint's going to be. And our sprints might be a little longer than most because of some, the way we do timelines, but a lot of them fit very well into a 2 to 4 week effort.
Let me ask this question. From point B, how the life of the company changed when you brought, it's not only software, you brought Kanban approach to the whole organization. What's changed in the company?
I think there's, I wish I could say we've adopted it. We haven't. I showed you my scheduling software. I didn't know that. They were already investing in that. They'd hired a software programmer to do that. And they have since also purchased a license for a product called Open Asset and one called Deltek Vantage Point that is a ERP. They're really using it for the finance side and the CRM side.
Mm-hmm.
But there were historic decisions made by senior management before I joined the firm that what I will say has happened since I brought the topic up is there's the focus on improving workflow has become a regular conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one where it's amazing how many people are passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
Either because they have an idea of how to do it differently, or they can see when we don't do it well, how it causes challenges for the firm. So we're always looking for ways to make our work more fun. Simplicity and visualization are one of the tools I think that gives you, I said earlier, gives you more time to do the fun stuff. So I think that's it's a work in progress, and I haven't, as I say, I haven't stopped raising it as an issue on a regular basis whenever I can. But I also, because I have a little bit of a public face in terms of I write for two large university association magazines on technology, that I talk about it all the time. Because I can see where it would apply to other people, and I will advocate for that. And I find it's, I wish I was more expert sometimes, because I have a good general knowledge. I'm in awe every time I talk to Dimitri because he is so much on top of everything. You and me too. We said I talked enough, but
maybe we should create some special education for you and help you to be expert.
Well, it's funny because I've talked to Craig Strong, and a couple of other people when I was first getting started. Again, I think what I don't want to do, and this is just self-serving, is I could spend more time and get my Kanban Zone system to be more relevant to me on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, at the moment, for the last month and looking forward probably for at least I wish I could say I could see it slowing down. But the good news is we're successful, which just means there's more work to do. And my first priority is to get the work done, and less about managing the workflow and seeing how I, it still continues to help me see it. And I, as I say, I know every time I get a new project, it goes on the board. There may not be as much detail under it other than to say it's there, because I manage up and I manage down. So I've shared, even though he doesn't have a license, to see the board with the guy that I report to, who's the director of engineering for the whole firm. And so I want him to know.
Yeah. I have several tricky questions. Are you ready?
Okay.
First one, what about your C-level? Do they use, I don't know, Kanban Zone or another, maybe Trello, maybe Asana, this approach where they have, no?
No, in our personal C-level at Clark Enersen, no. They are very old school, Excel spreadsheet, checklists, and they grew up in a small office in central Nebraska. Everybody talked to each other, so they didn't need to, So now that we're a national platform, it's a different story. But there still is the old school thinking I run into on a regular basis. Yeah. And where it falls apart is when they make decisions and do things where they forget about, and sounds egotistical, they forget about me, because I have an important discipline in a lot of the work we do. But they'll often say, and they acknowledge it and apologize, say, you're not visible because you're not here all the time, so we didn't think about it, so it didn't get included.
Because they're in the office, right?
Right. Yeah.
You remind me one story. I worked in Knoxville, JTV, it's a local company. It's television. And our average age in C-level was about 70 years old. And when I came as an agile coach, I brought for sure
Mhm.
Kanban board, and I brought Slack, because in Slack you can
Yeah.
communicate better.
Yes. Right.
And we had a lot of resistance because it was completely new approach and way of thinking. What I did for C-level, because I realized that maybe this generation never will fall in love with technologies, and it's okay.
Right.
We create, let's call it Scrum Master for them, and she create all tasks, and she put all deadlines, everything in all meetings, planning session, demo, and we teach them to have Slack, and they use Slack very much, and they love it because there are no spam emails, right? But it took for a while to help with new habits, new mindset. But again, they need
and we've had the same experience with Teams. We did not use Teams until right before I joined the firm, but I've been using Teams for as long as it's been out. So Teams is our Slack now, and I just got off a workflow committee subcommittee call where we talked about the fact that we're doing it now. We have Zoom and we have Teams. And one of the people on the subcommittee said, why are we using Teams and Zoom? Because they both do the same thing functionally. And I said, well, really, if you really wanted, I understood when I first got here, there's some trouble with the Teams implementation. So it wasn't always consistent. And so because it didn't always work, people stopped using it. They trusted Zoom, even though they cheap out, and I can log in, but I get a 40-minute meeting. We just had that meeting cut off because we didn't have a license. We're cheap, but Teams I can run all day long, right? So that's so now more people are moving towards Teams as our Slack and using it for internal, tying it to OneNote for keeping records. And what I haven't started saying is, because I know that there's a Jira plugin. I think there's an Asana plugin. There's some Kanban plugins to Teams. Are you guys working on that? It's on the roadmap?
I think we have for sure with Jira we have collaboration, and we have I think we have something. I need to ask Dimitri.
But it's, I would say that we're starting to use the other tools that are plugins to Teams as a way to expand that ability. So
and what the second question? I see in different companies, and I'm wondering about yours. There are several software in each department. Like you mentioned, Zoom and Teams, but like Jira, I don't know, Asana, Trello, like different, and Excel as well, right?
Right. Yeah.
And what do you think? Tell me please about your company. Do you have the same, or you're united around?
No, we have. It's one of the challenges. We are what I term laissez-faire. That term is that anybody can do whatever they want. As long as they get it done. And so. Their tradition in the industry is to use Microsoft Project as a waterfall Gantt style program. That's probably used by maybe half the project managers. The other half use Excel sheets and calendars, and some, to my views, I can't publish this, fly by the seat of their pants. I mean, I have no idea how they manage their work. But somehow they get it done. And so there's no consistency. And that's where I think, as an old line project manager, I always look for ways to create routines and then iterate those, using again, sort of agile model, is to make them better over time. Where you see something, you can, using lean models to improve improvements, is to tweak that, but share that with everybody so that we're all working in the same platform. It allows us to share work more easily when we do that. So it's a bit of a frustration that we are, but as I say, the good news is we do have this workflow committee, and we are moving in a way that will get us towards at least a more common language about project management.
Because what we see a world problem right now, we call it lack of communication or silos. And it's not only real communication, it's about IT platform silos. And because they have different platforms, marketing has Asana, somebody Trello.
In our case, marketing has Open Asset.
Kanban Zone, Excel, something. And they have silos. And first of all, the company pay for 5 different platforms at the same time. and it's okay, for example, but they have silos. And imagine that you're in our team, and what you would suggest us, how we can help this world to solve this problem, because it's a problem.
Well, I always believe in lead by example, and that if you can take, as I'm trying to do in our firm, a small subsection of the practice and really refine the management processes using the contemporary tools, Agile, Kanban as the example, and demonstrate that it's, this group is communicating better, doing their work more efficiently, improving our quality of life. The work-life balance is that architecture as an industry is infamous for late nights and long weekends. And I don't do that. I work, I'll call it a normal work week. I don't do a lot of extra overtime because I manage my project well. That's been my nature since I first started in project management, 40 years ago. I will be 75 this year.
Really? I thought you're 65.
Yeah, well, thank you. But I always joke that I play 10 years younger than my calendar, but it's and that's just immaturity. But but it's at this point, when you've done anything for a long time, it's always what are the ways I can make it simpler, make it easier, and still provide quality work. I think at the end of the day, our goal is to make our clients happy with the work, because we want them either to refer us or to hire us again. And that really should be everybody's mantra, but unfortunately it's not. But I know that it is within the culture of Clark and Enersen. That's definitely the model. So my goal is to help find the tools that will give everyone that same ability to work efficiently and make happy clients and be happy too.
Yeah, this is exactly what we're talking all the time with Dimitri. How we can help them to be happy. We're not going to write in our website because it's like it's happy, but we want to help them be happy and work less and achieve more and have fun, like you mentioned. Be on the same page, because there are so many duplication, lack of communication, long meetings because they try to figure out what is going on.
I sit in those once a week where, we have 20 disciplines and I have to wait because mine's the last part of the agenda.
Yeah.
Now, in theory, I could call in late knowing they're not going to get to me, but every once in a while, something will say, well, where's Craig? And so you get to sit through. And so, you know how it goes. And now we switch them virtually. I'm multitasking over here doing something else. And hopefully I hear my name being called,
Yeah, exactly. And everybody, I worked with many companies, everybody have this meeting. And we call it Tuesday because I worked in 21 countries, and each country has this Tuesday meeting, 3 hours in executive level. Tuesday. And everybody just waiting when they will report.
Yeah. Now, I've been in the C-suite 3-4 times in my career. And yes, I remember those Tuesdays. Tuesday afternoon. Yeah, it was.
It is Tuesday. And everybody just report and show that you're doing something. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And we still have everywhere this Tuesday. And it's unbelievable. Okay, last question, I promise. What would you suggest our new clients who will sign up for Kanban Zone?
Schedule 2 or 3 good half hour. Doesn't have to, again, half hour is really great. Orientation meetings with Dimitri or whoever else, as you've grown. I will benefit from my conversations with Dimitri. To first explain what we just talked about. What do you do and how do you do it now? Because he will find the ways to apply it the best. Because I was fumbling around trying to make my own up without really thinking through that. And I apologize if they exist. There probably are videos out there to watch.
But if you watch, it means that we did bad job and we didn't show you. Okay.
Yeah, right. I didn't show. Or I didn't look. It's funny. I'm getting more better. I am that older generation. So even though I've always been ahead of the curve, I bought my first computer in 1980. And took basic programming so I could learn how to actually make it do something for me. But I'm different than a lot of my peers. And so they call me and ask me. I get that question all the time. Greg knows. I think that take advantage of the training and orientation. The website has a lot of great content, white papers, more. Every time I go on, there's more. And so use that. And I think one of the things I love about your company is how responsive you are to my questions. I don't ask as many anymore, but in the beginning I asked a lot, and I got immediate answers. Within, if not within moments, within a couple hours, and it was always very personal. So I like the fact that it's a high touch organization that really values its clients. He and I have talked a couple of times. So I've actually published one white paper for you on this for architecture, finding ways to spread the word into this community, this industry, that there are tools out there that you could really make a big difference.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We put our customers in the middle. Like, we're a truly agile company. This is something we believe. And we try how we can serve them better, but at the same time, we see there are in all industries, different industries, there are so many the same problems. It's a huge, and remote teams like you're remote, and for people who used to work in the office, you're not exactly exist because they didn't use it. I have one company. They have 50% of all employees in the office and 50% in their in Zoom. And it's a huge problem. It's just problem for them because we just have lack of communication because, anyway.
Now, I benefit a little bit as I go back to Kansas City or Omaha or Lincoln on a regular basis, about once a month. So I do that consciously because I realize that we are of a generation of senior leaders that are my group that needs to see faces, that they feel better if they've connected personally, had lunch, had breakfast, things like that. But on a regular basis, I work a lot with, under 40, who would rather be here,
exactly,
and using tools, and there's a big digital divide. I just wrote this. There's summer of 2019, the number of people working in the United States under 40 now exceed the number over 40. So it's the bigger cohort. And the digital natives, the people that use technology naturally, are at a big advantage over those of us who grew up in an analog world and are adapting to digital. So
in Knoxville, Tennessee, I had one hospitality business, and we have right now 5 generations in one team. 5. And they don't understand each other. And I created a guide I can share with you, just help them to understand, because we had a lot of conflicts just because 18 years old and 87 founder, they just didn't understand each other.
Exactly.
And I create a guide like how communicate with this person. This is this age.
Yeah, I would love to see that because and I'll share back one that I found.
Yeah,
I found very interesting.
Read yours as well because you're a so interesting person. I mean, I'm so glad to talk with you. It's amazing.
Well, I look forward to seeing how you turn this into something for.
We will create an article. We will show you before we'll publish it anywhere, and because I think we can collaborate better and help industry and just help them explain. Look, it's easy. We can support you. We can help you.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
You're an amazing person. Okay.
Thanks so much, Marina. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.